And then I think we should get started. Thank you all so much for joining us. Again, it's really good to be in this motion of having folks, I guess it's not in person, but it feels live, which is exciting. We're going to talk today about powering your Giving Tuesday efforts with recurring donations. The majority of what we'll talk about will be focused on the recurring piece. So excited to have you here. If you're not orienting around Giving Tuesday, which I know is more focused on in the States, I think that a lot of what we'll discuss will still be relevant. Excuse me. So we'll kick it off. Quick intro. My name's Annette. I am an enterprise account manager here at NationBuilder. I am zooming in from Detroit. My background is a mix of both fundraising software as well as on the ground at a nonprofit. So working to really create programs like this, get donors on board, build those relationships. And I will let my colleague Ashleigh here introduce herself.
Thanks, Annette. I am Ashleigh. I am dialing in from Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm originally from Massachusetts, and before coming to NationBuilder, similar to Annette, most of my career and time and experience was in the nonprofit sector, primarily focusing on fundraising, and I love Giving Tuesday. It's like my favorite holiday of the year. And like Annette said, I think our goal today is to talk about Giving Tuesday, but to also, help kind of lift up a lot of the practices that go into a successful Giving Tuesday campaign, because it really is applicable pretty much for any organization, whether Giving Tuesday is something you participate in or not. A lot of the things we're going to talk about today can really just be iterated on and rolled out across the board. So we're super excited to get started. And if you're just joining us, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We're just curious to see where everybody is dialing in from. And let's go. Take it back to you, Annette.
Awesome. Great. So why Giving Tuesday? We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about why recurring donations. The majority, as I said today, will focus on elements of a successful recurring donor program. And then we'll have some time for questions at the end. And we've got, two folks here. Our other colleague, Sasha, is also here. So if you have questions, we'll be able to handle those in the chat. Feel free to let them post them there. Also, just want to recognize that some of you might be coming to this having already experience with a recurring donor program. Ashleigh and I are obviously speaking from what we've seen work well in our experience, but also with our customers, but we acknowledge that y'all have probably a lot to share. So if you're running into things at work, if you're running into things that are a challenge for you, at the end, we should have some time to answer some of those questions about that. And we look forward to hearing your experience as well in the chat. So right at the top, why Giving Tuesday? You've probably heard of Giving Tuesday, but it was started in 2012 under this large umbrella of encouraging folks to do good. In the States, it's oriented around the day after or the week after Thanksgiving. And I think for our customers, it does create a unique opportunity to ask your supporters to engage in a new way. So that could be becoming a greater part of your work. Today, our focus will be on donating, but I think there's other ways that you could engage on Giving Tuesday as well. I took this today, 68 days away from it. So we have some time to plan. If you're hoping to create a program in advance of launching it on Giving Tuesday, I do think it's still possible with some hustle, but I think it's definitely possible, and hope that y'all can take away some facts to help you move in that direction. And then just noting, what we discussed today is relevant for Giving Tuesday if you decide to launch a recurring donor program at that time. And a lot of folks find that Giving Tuesday isn't maybe the best for their organization. That could be maybe you're down a staff member and you want a little bit of extra time, or maybe it's more of a general end of year push. So even if Giving Tuesday is not your end goal, everything that we'll talk about should apply. And then you might also find a day that is relevant for a cause that is for your org. So maybe it's National Yoga Day, and I think that's usually in June. And so you decide that that's a better day to launch your program, and this all should apply. So why recurring donations? We generally do a webinar around Giving Tuesday every year. This year in particular, we know there's a lot out there. So you can get checklists, you can get blogs all about Giving Tuesday. You can read about, how to work back so that you have everything in order. That is available. I think we also have a blog currently about how to set up your checklist so that you're ready to go. But this year in particular, we're focusing on recurring donations because if we're thinking of putting all of this work into organizing your resources around this particular day, we think that asking for recurring donors is one of the ways that you can maximize your efforts. As you know, they not only create that financial foundation, they help you plan ahead, but more importantly, arguably, is it provides another way for your supporters to get involved with your organization. I think that on social media this week, we put out a video of our CEO, Leah, who you see on this slide here. And she spoke to the way that one of the first times that she asked for donations, she kind of had it click where she realized that it was about more than the money. It was about inviting someone in to be a part of something that she was really passionate about. And making a financial contribution was just sort of the way to do that. I know that that's something that I personally relate to, is being excited that someone wants to do something or help something that I'm personally interested in. And so I think that when we think about recurring donations, that's something that to keep in mind is rather than sort of inviting folks into just that donor role, it's really expanding them to have a greater relationship with the organization as a whole. So what we're going to do is run through the elements of a successful recurring donor program. I think there's 8 here. I should have listed them all out. They'll go quick. 8 certainly seems like a lot, but I promise we'll give you the details. And we are recording this, so you'll have the notes afterwards. But let's dive right in. So number 1, understand your existing supporters to consider your potential donors. Before you even begin to plan for your program, think about which of your supporters are most likely to want to join you in this next step of the relationship. Thinking about how people can currently engage with your organization is a good place to start. So can they volunteer? Can they make a one-time donation? There's obviously other ways for you that might be more expansive beyond that. But once you understand how folks are currently involved, you can start to understand who's actually taking those actions. Those actions can be an indicator to you of that someone might want to continue that engagement and continue that relationship. Right in NationBuilder, I'd recommend pulling up filters for the ways that folks have engaged. So if you already are using the platform, you might think about what you're measuring on NationBuilder and how you might measure that with filters. So are they a volunteer? Have they been contacted? Maybe someone on our team is in touch with this person. Did they recently donate? And so you can sort of build up your audience. You could add that to a saved filter if you really wanted, and that could be your potential donors or potential recurring donors. But other audiences you might think of would be young professionals, folks who have attended an event, or at the highest level, you might be considering a program where you think that most people at the organization can get involved. So if they're a supporter of yours, so maybe they just receive your newsletter, maybe they open it, maybe they click it. Those can also be people who you can make the ask to. I think with a recurring donor program, because it is that consistency and you're inviting folks to be involved at a deeper level, emphasizing participation over amounts is important. Now you might decide that when you have a big push or when you're ready to kind of take that next level, that you include maybe different tiers. But to start, I think participation is a good place to begin. Number 2, identify an internal champion for your program. So this may be you. This may not be you. I think that the important part that I wanted to call out here is that we've probably all been a part of an initiative or a project that really wasn't anyone's job and ended up sort of just floating in the ether of things that needed to get done. If you're ready to prioritize creating a recurring donor program, I think it's crucial that you have one or multiple folks at your organization who are really owning it, who are able to keep this as a priority. If there are multiple people, I think that's ideal. Then you've got the ability to, A, break up the work, but also understand how things have a different perspective, right? And C, understand how it might be going across. So maybe one person's in charge of making sure that your recurring donation page is set up correctly, but the other person might be in charge of contacting every new recurring donor in order to make sure that they feel appreciated and thanked. And then I also think it's a really creative idea that I've seen in the past to have either an external, and I say external to mean simply not a staff member, someone who might be a donor or a volunteer as almost an ambassador. So if you've got someone who is very likely to become a recurring donor, or maybe you already have a program and think about the first like 5 to 10 people that were your go-to signups for signing on to be a recurring donor, ask them to play an even larger role in helping you spread the word about this. They don't necessarily need to see all the financials. They don't need to take on the bulk of the work, but as you're speaking about this and as you're working to understand what's working, what's not, having someone who's sort of on the other end, I think will be helpful for spreading the word from that way as well.
Annette, I was just going to say too, when you're talking about having an internal champion, if you are, for those of you who are using NationBuilder, a great way to kind of keep track of this is using the paths feature and setting up a path to kind of track, what you're doing within that process, even for just yourself, or where some of these folks that are on your recurring donor, wow, I think I just made a word, recurring donation prospect list, you can keep track of them that way too. So it's really helpful to have a handy place to kind of just see where you're at, both with the different steps in reaching out to those folks, and if you have that external donor or volunteer or even like community member as an ambassador, you can also set them up within NationBuilder to have their own kind of piece of responsibility with it too. So it's always hard to keep it organized, but it'll help you keep track of all your steps.
Absolutely. Thank you for that reminder, Ashleigh. We'll have a little bit more on that later down the line. Ashleigh's actually going to share a little bit about that too. So step 3, name your recurring donor program. So this is where I feel like you can get kind of fun. You can start to engage with your community. But I think the underlying piece here is that you really make it a thing, for lack of a better term, right? So if someone signs on to become a recurring donor, obviously you understand the importance of that. But I think really giving a name to it and helping that name represent what those folks are doing helps the folks on the other end really see the impact that they're having. So the examples that you see here on the screen are ones from the real world that we've seen that help people understand the impact that they're having. One distinction here is, as you're just from a vocabulary standpoint, is as you're thinking about what to name it, you'll want to have a name for the program as a whole, but also for the community. So thinking about your communications, there's going to be times where you're going to ask folks to join the front row. But that might be a different name than, signing on to become a front row member, right? So really thinking about what that vocabulary looks like, laying that out, whatever you decide, I think can be representative of the work that you do in the world. And I think that's when I see it to be the most successful. I was telling Ashleigh the other day, I was recently invited to become a leading lady, and I immediately wanted to become one, right? Because the name alone gave the assumption that like in joining it, I was already helping and it was already community that I feel a strong connection to, right? So having that as an opportunity to help you kind of help your potential donors understand what they can be doing. Number 4, define what benefits donors will receive, if any. So you might find that I think it's important that recurring donors do receive some layer of deeper recognition. And I think it's also fine and wonderful if those benefits are experiential, they might be physical, or they just might be digital. If you are in a situation where maybe you're on a tight budget and fundraising is not a line item that exists at your organization, which I think we can all relate to, just because that's the case, it doesn't mean that you can't find a really meaningful way to steward your recurring donors in a deeper way. So my question to you would be, what opportunities exist at your organization for deeper recognition? These could be, larger, like acknowledging folks at an in-person event. It could be special access to a webinar or an event that is only for recurring donors. It could be a more frequent newsletter. It could be an exclusive newsletter that only they receive. And I think that I guess the last piece that I will add is that I have seen like physical things work. So if you happen to have the budget, I feel consistently surprised, even in myself, what I will do for a mug. I'm certainly
a tote bag,
a donor. Yeah. Yeah, so I definitely donate to my local public radio station for this exact reason. And so thinking about it holistically, right, in terms of like, what do you have to offer? It doesn't need to be anything grand. It doesn't need to be anything that is necessarily expensive or costly, but the goal is to really help your donors feel special. Yes, Sasha, highlighting them on social media, like thanking them on social media, really good shout there. For those of you who have a recurring donor program, if you have other ideas or things that have worked for you, I'd love to see them in the chat. I worked with an organization previously who would have a fundraising competition, so a little bit of a separate way in, but at the end of the year, the top fundraiser would get to present a check at their big gala. So it didn't cost them anything. They didn't have to pay for it, but that person felt really special and they got to honor them in that way.
Yeah. And when Annette and I were discussing this too, I was also sharing with her, because for those of you who went to college, or university, or maybe even like any sort of private institution, a lot of alumni programs offer some sort of, recurring donor program. And my alma mater, I haven't, admittedly, full transparency, I haven't looked at our recurring donor program in quite some time, and just found out that because I'm a recurring donor, I have free access to all of the state parks that the school that I went to a state school that the school's in, because they set up this program, but I only have that free access. And by free access, I mean, I don't have to pay to park, which I probably will do anyway if I was going, but it's such a cool way to like partner with another organization and provide a benefit that probably doesn't cost the school much money or much resources, but it offers a huge benefit to other recurring donors in the program like myself. So there's definitely a lot of really fun and unique and like creative ways that you can provide some benefits that might not even cost anything.
Yeah, transitioning like from this piece to the next second half, which will focus a little bit more on the NationBuilder side of things and the ways that you might feature your recurring donor program on your site. Adding these to the site will help folks understand and make a decision about where they fit. So you might, if you do decide to add in those tiers that I mentioned earlier, lay out right on your page, like what each level will receive. And then I think I'll kick it over to Ashleigh to take us through.
Thanks, Annette. So yeah, so as Annette was saying, with one of the important pieces, like any giving program, whether it's recurring or just one-time donors, is you obviously want to have a place for folks to sign up, whether to make one-time donations or monthly or annual recurring donations. And so creating a specific place for these donations will not only help you keep organized internally, but also have a very clear direct way for your supporters to find that page. The last thing you want folks to do is, and I know we all probably feel this frustration, is to be on a website excited to support the organization, excited to make a monetary contribution, and then you're clicking through a lot of things because you're trying to figure out, where do I go to do that thing? So making sure you have a place to sign up for monthly donations that is very clear and very easy to find is really beneficial to the success of your program. You're also going to want to test it and make sure that the user experience is pleasant. So not just being able to find it, but also, what is the experience that somebody goes through when they click on the page? Are they given multiple donation amount options? Are they given the opportunity to pick an amount? Another thing you could do here, I've seen a lot of folks do this, is they select the donation amounts or the pre-filled donation amounts as things that are representative of their organization. So for instance, my alma mater was founded in a certain year. And so one of the amounts is always like the year of the school that was founded. So kind of some fun things like that. As part of that experience, test, to see what the auto response email looks like. Is it personal enough? Does it highlight any additional information? Is there an additional call to action in that auto response email that's like, thanks so much for becoming a recurring donor. Here's, how you can get even more involved. Does your page offer, automatic tagging? If you're using NationBuilder, you can set it up so that when folks take an action on that page, they automatically get a tag appended to their profile. So testing to see, like, are they going to get that information? What does the landing page look like after they donate? So when they donate, like, where do you want them to go next? And does that feel cohesive? And then also thinking through and setting up a thank you email workflow. So not just an auto response email. The auto response email might be just the receipt of the transaction with a thank you, but also setting up, additional thank you notes to follow up with folks and to get more information from them. We are super excited to share that we have a dynamic donations theme this year, which is very exciting because it will give you a really quick way to set up a donation page with this in mind. This is how we rolled this out. And so it is an easy way to kind of get these things up and rolling, so you don't have to spend too much time going through the building and the testing, and you can get your page up and moving in under 68 days, right? 68 days, that's what we got left, 68 days.
Yeah.
We make it as quick as possible.
I'll add here that this theme is like co-branded with Giving Tuesday. So if you decide that you're ready to launch your recurring program on Giving Tuesday, the goal is that this makes it as easy as possible to like lead with this branding. If you're not sure, or you're going to be launching it later, or you want it to have like an ongoing home, I might recommend having a dedicated donation V2 page where the default is monthly, and that's the same page maybe where you lay out the benefits that folks get. So this is an option, and of course you might take an existing page that you have and edit it, but wanted to make sure that you all knew about that new theme that we have this year, if you are looking to make something quick and ready to go.
I feel like we skipped something. So, one thing that, as Annette just mentioned, talking about our donation V2 pages that are powered by NationBuilder payments. It's, when using NationBuilder payments, I think it's really important to talk about, how important it is if you're using NationBuilder, why using NationBuilder payments is really beneficial to you and your program. So, we want you to use NationBuilder payments not because of the transaction, but because of the solution that we're trying to offer. The goal being an all-in-one system and an integrated payment processor is the key to that, right? One of the goals of NationBuilder is to give you as much power behind all of these integrated tools into one space. Payments is also a part of that fully integrated system. It also means that we can ensure the best security and improve usability and workflows related to this. It's really hard for us to do that if people are using different processors, because every third-party processor interacts differently, is functioning differently. And the last thing you're going to want to do is have a big campaign, a recurring donation campaign going on, and things are happening and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and you want some insight into it, and we can't give you as much insight as we could if you're using NationBuilder payments. So some of the things to mention here is that it is all in one place. We do offer top anti-fraud security as part of NationBuilder payments. The experience on the front end and the back end are enhanced. So the idea is that, you know, both from the user, the donor standpoint, it's very seamless, it's quick and easy. And then on your end, you can get all the information that you need for reporting, for figuring out where you're at in your campaign. Super easy to set up. We're constantly making improvements. So, you know, as things are progressing, we are constantly rolling out updates and changes based on the feedback that we're getting. Our rates are highly competitive. You can find those on our website. And we also offer express payment options, which you can kind of see a little bit here. They are Apple Pay and Google Pay. So like everybody's moving towards being able to pay on your phone with Apple Pay, Google Pay, et cetera. And we want to give folks the option to do that and just basically remove as many barriers as possible so that when someone's excited to donate, they can make that donation as quick as possible. So this is what I was kind of teasing a little bit earlier and kind of jumped the gun a little bit. But number 6, ask and give your giving program a home. This is going to sound kind of weird, but the number one reason why people donate, I'm sure everybody in this chat knows, is that because you ask. You are asking people to make those donations. And so you want to be able to give your giving program a space to live and to breathe and really truly become a community and be able to connect with the folks that are part of your recurring giving program. Giving Tuesday is a great day to launch a new program, but like Annette and I've said, you know, if Giving Tuesday is not aligned with your plans for the next year, you can also do this on a Founders Day or a day that is meaningful to your organization. Consider how you're going to spread the word about recurring donations. So a couple things you could consider would be creating an email series workflow. This would have a dedicated ask to your most engaged supporters. You can track this with a path like shown here on the screen. This is a great way to kind of do a little bit of a heavy lift at the top, but it automates as you run it, and it gives you the ability to reach out to a large group of people, your most engaged supporters, with multiple touches, right? It usually takes 3 to 4 asks before somebody takes an action, makes a donation, right? So you're going to want to kind of gently reconnecting with them, checking in with them, teasing them with new updates, letting them know this is something you need their help with. And then also make sure your entire staff is aware of how people can sign up to become a recurring donor. I worked at an organization where we were short-staffed, as I'm sure many people can empathize with, and folks would call the main phone number because that's the phone number they found easy by Googling our organization's name. And so the person that answered our phones was able to let folks know this is how you can sign up to become a recurring donor. So that way there was no obstacle. You know, everybody who answered the phone, even if it wasn't the right number, would be able to say like, yeah, this is so great, here's how you can do it, and would assist them that way. So letting everybody know this is how people can do it, and this how they get involved is hugely helpful. Again, just like removing those barriers from getting folks involved and engaged. Number 7, you want to provide a place for donors to view and update their donations. This is very exciting because this is a brand new NationBuilder feature that we literally just rolled out and are super excited about, and has come up because this is what folks want, right? They want the ability to view and update their donations. And so NationBuilder Supporter Portal is the newest way for you to expand your relationship with your enthusiastic supporters, your recurring donors, and your members. It allows you to establish trust with the people who support your cause. So, you know, I think we might all be guilty of this, or maybe this is just me, but I'm supporting an organization, I'm a recurring donor, just like my alma mater. You know, I make a donation every month. It's set automatically. I don't have to think too much about it, but I just moved. And of course, then all of my billing information has changed. And now I don't remember what information I have in the portal. Instead of having to make a phone call or to start a new donation or any of that sort of stuff, with this supporter portal, as a donor, I can go in and view that information and update that information. So like, maybe I just need to update, how much I want to donate. Maybe I change my name. There are certain things that like this will just give me access to as a supporter. And again, eliminates those barriers. So it's a great tool. We're super excited about it. For those of you who use NationBuilder and are using us, in that way, we would love to hear you give us any feedback that you have about it. With the supporter portal now, as a donor, you can see all of your active recurring donations and memberships. So maybe your recurring donor program has a membership included in it. You can see all of that in one place. They can update the payment method on file, which is a thing I'm going to have to do with my alma mater in a couple of days because all of my addresses have changed. And you can also cancel your recurring donation or memberships. Now, hopefully folks aren't wanting to do that, but maybe there's a good reason for it. Maybe there is somebody who's going to make a really large one-time gift instead of their recurring gift over time. This gives them the ability to do it on their own without having to, take away time and resources from the team if they don't need to. So this really gives a lot of power to your supporters, and power to your supporters is what helps build trust with them. And as Annette said, you can find it under settings, supporter portal there. And number 8, continuously thank and acknowledge your recurring donors. This is the thing I want to put on a banner, shout from the rooftops, probably one of the most important things. Thanking supporters, of course, is important. And thanking them for any support, whether it's monetary, time, energy, etc., is important. But to go even deeper in creating that relationship with your supporters, you want to thank them in a way that reflects their level of engagement. If somebody is making a recurring donation, the way I like to think about it is there are certain things I have to pay every month. I have to pay my rent. I have to pay my internet bill. This is how I budget out my life. If I'm making a recurring donation to an organization every month, I am choosing to make that a priority. I'm saying every month, this is something that I am going to do, and I'm going to support this organization, and I'm going to do it in this way. And that is something to be really celebrated and acknowledged often in a variety of different ways. I think it's super easy for us to, send a thank you email, but it's also even better to get a handwritten note, especially when it's out of the blue and you're not anticipating it. Like, I know at the holidays, I'm going to get a postcard from my alma mater saying thank you. Like, I know it's coming and I'm excited for it and it's great. And I put it up on my wall with all of my other holiday cards. But I got a handwritten note from the alumni director a couple of years ago out of the blue. And it totally, in the mix of all of the bills and stuff in my mail, it made my day and allowed me to actually reconnect with her and have an even deeper relationship. We ended up getting lunch a couple of months later and talking through ways for me to get more involved. So even just that tiny little handwritten note totally sparked a deeper level of engagement for myself. A personal thank you from the executive director. Maybe that's a phone call. Maybe that's also a note. But just even acknowledgement from somebody, higher up in the organization or more visible in the organization can go a long way. You can celebrate your social media supporters with a shout out on social platforms. This is huge. If you're connected with those folks, tagging them, sharing their photos with permission, obviously making sure that they're cool with it, but sharing that excitement and generosity on social media platforms is also going to bring other folks into the fold as well. And then sending personal thank you emails or phone calls. Like, maybe you set up 2 hours on a Friday twice a month and you just go through the list and just pick up the phone. Nobody picks up the phone anymore. So it's even more exciting when you get a phone call and it's somebody just calling to thank you for something. And it's not somebody calling being like, hey, your car warranty is up. So, these are the phone calls we actually really want to get. But the most important thing is that you want to make this relationship more than about money, right? Yes, the gifts and the support are great. But now that somebody's made this donation, they've made this commitment for however long they maintain it. this is a window of opportunity to come in and to actually have a conversation with those supporters and say, you know, what matters to you? Like, you clearly are making our organization a priority. We want to know, you know, what's the feedback? How are you feeling about things? Are there things that we could be doing better? Are there other campaigns that you've been a part of or have witnessed that you think might be a good idea? You know, use it as a conversation starter to really deepen that relationship, because you'll never know, you know, what kind of feedback folks will provide. And the more that they feel like you see them as a person and as a supporter and not just somebody who's making a monetary donation, the better that trust will be and built over time. Good questions.
We sped through it.
We did.
It felt quick. There was definitely a lot to cover. So I think, like, whether or not you're planning to launch on Giving Tuesday, I think that as you're getting ready to create or maybe refine your recurring donor program, thinking about building the relationship is always going to be the top priority there. So we have a little bit of time. That kind of concludes our official content. But I'd be curious to hear if anyone wants to pop into the chat and share any questions or things that really have worked well for them in terms of recurring donors, or things that they run into, and Ashleigh and I can work to address those too. So we'll give y'all a couple of moments, and if now is your time to like head out and get to work on creating your program, thank you so much for joining us. We'll send out the recording in an email by the end of the week, and yeah, thanks. Otherwise, we'll stick around to answer any last minute questions.
I would also love to just hear other names of folks recurring donor programs. Because when Annette and I were talking about this, we went down a rabbit hole of looking up the recurring donor program names. Like for my alma mater, I didn't even know what some of the names were. And then I actually learned a lot of history about my alma mater through looking at that, because they were named after certain people. So it's very cool. And that someone in the chat asked if we could walk through setting up a supporter portal.
I think that's a great use of our time. Let me just get logged in here so that I can re-share my screen. Okay, can y'all see my nation? So here I am in my Sandbox Nation. It's kind of small. Let me see if I can. There we go. So the first place that you're going to go is into the settings. And what you'll see is a new tab called Supporter Portal. And so by default, mine are turned on because I've been in there. I'm fairly certain that yours will be turned off by default and you'll have to opt in to turn them on. But you'll notice a few tabs here. So the first tab is going to be settings. That'll be high level. There are some others for donation and membership management. First thing that I'll do is I'll show you what the portal looks like to your supporters. So this would be if someone logs into the portal and they see it, what they will see is this view. So at the top, this supporter portal -Annette, that's something that you can customize. The logo, that yellow envelope there, is something that you can customize. Again, you've got the ability to make donations or memberships accessible and viewable. So I have both turned on in my nation, but maybe you don't use memberships at your org. And so you want to turn that off. You can make it so that only the donations will show. These pieces here that you see at the bottom are also things that you can edit. And so I'll show you once we jump back to the control panel where you can make that change. But the recurring plans will show here. I will click into this arrow here so that we can see the details of this donation, and they can see the frequency, they can see the payment method. If you wanted to edit the payment method, they would click on edit. And if you wanted to change the card, you would click again on edit and you would add your new card. Only other feature here that I'll highlight is maybe they decide that, like Ashleigh, you're moving and you want to update your organization as a whole, your address as a whole for the organization. That's something that you could do by checking that box, clicking save. And then if you wanted to cancel it, it'll give you a "are you sure" message, and then that would take place immediately. So that's what your donors would see. I'm going to run back to the supporter portal. This first tab, like I mentioned, is where you would set up a lot of those details, depending on how much you want to present. Let me just check out the chat, see how we're doing. Yes, okay, would they log in through our website? So right now, your supporter portal lives at your slug. Like the link to your supporter portal is found here. So by default right now, there's no like link to it on your website. It's not like we've added that in across the board to all customers. If you do want to make it accessible to everyone, a couple ways. So if you've customized your auto response emails for your recurring donations, I would recommend putting a link in the that auto response email, and you should notice a new smart field option. So you don't have to get into Liquid. You can just like you add someone's first name, you can say link to supporter portal. And then if you wanted to have it be accessible on the website, we have some documentation on this, and I can, maybe Ash can help me get it in the chat, but we can send it in the follow-up email too. So I'll make a note of that. Essentially, we would just recommend setting up a redirect page. So wherever you decide you want it to live, send it right here. As Ashleigh mentioned, this is very much version 1. And so as you're going through it, if you're like, oh, this is wonderful, and I'd also love if XYZ, our team is all ears. We'd love to hear those improvements. Yeah, let's see.
And another thing too is that, once you set it up and you're feeling like it looks like exactly what you want it to look like, you're feeling good about it, you could also just send out an email to all of your supporters and just let them know that this exists, and that now they have this capability, which might feel like not necessarily something aligned with org messaging necessarily, but it actually will help build trust with your donors, because you're giving them the heads up that, like, hey, you can go in and make these changes and these edits yourself now. You have access, and here's how you would do it.
Melissa, good question. Can they edit the dollar amount, or do they need to cancel and sign up for a new one? This is version 1. Very much that is feedback we've received. So for now, the only thing that they can edit is the address. They can cancel. And so if they wanted to change the amount, they'd have to start a new one, but they could cancel on their own. That's something that our team is aware of. It's one of those fine balances of deciding whether or not to release the whole thing or releasing it as soon as we have something that we think could be helpful. And so we chose the latter in this case, and understand that that's very much something that folks are wanting. So I'll make another note. I'll add a tally to the list of folks who might want to see that. Great. And then the only other thing before maybe we transition, this is just what I wanted to show. So if I wanted to toggle off the memberships, I would notice that when I come back to my supporter portal, let's say refresh. Well, let's see. Actually, let's see. We should see that the memberships should not be there. And here we are doing it live. I wonder if it saved my cookies, but we would expect that the memberships option would not be there. If you experience anything like I am currently experiencing, reach out to our support team. I haven't experienced this before, so I think it must be me, but we'll always jump to the top of the line.
Any other questions about the supporter portal? who's excited about doing some recurring giving campaigns next year? The year's almost over. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for taking time out of your day. We hope this was super informative and really helpful. And you've got some like creative juices flowing. We'd love to hear your feedback, and also would love to hear how everything goes. Over the next couple of months, please, let us know. And of course, if you're using the supporter portal, we would love to hear your feedback. As Annette said, please share it with us, and we will pass it along. And wish you all of the best success and best luck in getting a bunch more recurring donors rolled into your organization.
Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. And yeah, we'll be thinking of you. Bye-bye.